welcome to the Immigrant Entrepreneurs Show, where we inspire, impact, and influence other immigrant entrepreneurs and give a platform to those who share their stories. My guest today is Karim Kerachni. Welcome to the show, Karim.
Thank you, Ali. Thank you. I'm very happy to be here, and Happy New Year to you and your audience as we are first week of January.
Same to you. Thanks for being here. I know you're a busy guy and really appreciate you being here. So Karim, where are you right now in this world?
Oh, I'm currently on an island off the coast of Malaysia. So it is actually 11:30 p.m. right now. I've been traveling for about a year and a half, and yeah, I landed in Malaysia for the past few months, and it's great for those who've never been to Southeast Asia. Highly recommend.
Perfect. So I believe that's not where you're from. I hear a little bit of French accent.
That's right.
Yeah, please give us an idea of where you were born, raised, and what brings you to Malaysia.
Sure. Okay. Are you ready? Are you gonna take some notes? Because it is not easy. So I was born in Canada, in Montreal, from parents from Algeria. My parents are from Algeria. My dad is actually half French, half Algerian, and my mom is fully Algerian. They were finishing their studies in Canada. I was born in Montreal. I lived there for about 2.5 years, so I don't have, any memory. Then we moved back to Algeria, lived there for about 4 years. I have some memories. And when I was about 7, we moved to France. So since we had our, my grandparents there and some family there, a quarter of my family actually is there. And I spent 18 years of my life in France, in Lyon, which is pretty close from Switzerland, where you were around that time, funny enough.
Right.
And then, so I'm both Canadian, Algerian, and French in terms of citizenship. But then I moved back to Canada at the end of my studies. I did a master's degree, an MBA, and I got the opportunity to go somewhere. So I went to Canada. I wanted to check out that country, where I was born. And I've never been, since I was 2.5. So I went there in 2014, spent 9 years in Canada, out west, half the time, the other half out east on the East Coast. And then I went to Kuwait to get married there to my wife, who is Syrian but grew up in Kuwait.
Wow.
And then we moved together to Malaysia.
Wow. What a life, man.
So we have a pretty complicated combo. I don't know how we're gonna be able to explain that to our kids when we have kids.
Right.
Where am I from, Daddy? Forget
Exactly. When people, so I can obviously relate to that. When people ask me sometimes, hey, where are you from? I'm like, obviously I was born in Iran, lived a few years there, and then moved to Switzerland. Then, had to go back to Iran, then came back to Switzerland.
it. And
Now I
Dubai,
live in the
right?
US, Dubai also.
Yeah.
So I have so many, and the
When
good thing about it is there is so many things that you can pick from every place that you have lived in,
yeah.
and so many things that you can learn and relate to. And at the same time, I'm like, hey, when I talk to other Iranians, they don't, or at least those that live in Iran, for them, I'm like Swiss. When I
Yeah.
talk to my Swiss peers, for them,
It's
I'm
true.
like some exotic version of someone who was not obviously
Yeah.
born in Switzerland. So, but I see it as a great thing, to have experienced and still experience all these things. And yeah, man, that's maybe also something that I am so excited about creating this immigrant entrepreneurs community and show, because we all have something in common that we all can relate to and talk to one another for
Yeah.
for
When
hours.
people ask, I don't often answer. Obviously, I don't always answer in that much details because first, you never know what people are asking. Are they asking where my origins are from, my roots, or where, where I live? So I usually say, I'm from everywhere, or, whatever country I'm in, I'm from Malaysia. I live here. So but and I get asked that a lot, especially when you don't look like everyone else around. It's usually the
Mm-hmm.
first question, even before hello. Where are you from? I'm like,
Hmm.
it's none of your business.
Right.
It's not true. I don't know answer that, but that's sometimes what comes to mind.
So is Malaysia pretty much as, let's call it, as international as Singapore is, or what is it? Because I've been to Thailand, I have been to, where else have I been to in Asia? Yeah,
If
Thailand
you've been to
couple of
Thailand, you've
times.
been to Bangkok.
Yes.
Yeah, so I would say it's very similar to Bangkok. In
Okay.
actually, it's very similar to Thailand in a lot of ways. Kuala Lumpur
Hmm.
and the main cities are just as developed as Bangkok. You have everything there. You have a tons of universities and hospital and so on. I would say probably even more well developed and so on than Thailand. And obviously less than Singapore. If you've been to Singapore,
Hmm.
it's one of the most developed countries. I think it's even more high tech and cleaner and so on than New York or Hong Kong. Like so Singapore is miles ahead of everyone else. It's very
Hmm.
impressive when you go there.
Hmm.
So no, Malaysia is a very well developed country, and I think currently one of the best country to be. There is a huge wave of immigrants, especially retirees or rich people who want to retire in those countries because the cost of living obviously is very low. Maybe a quarter the cost of living in North America, but you have everything you need. The weather
Hmm.
is consistently 30 degrees Celsius, so about 90 degrees, Fahrenheit. People are super nice, super friendly. It's very harmonious, very peaceful. There is very low crime. It's super safe.
Hmm.
They're not at war with any other country. You know what I mean? So
Right.
all of that combined, great food as well.
Yeah,
So all
man.
of that
Yeah.
combined makes it a really, really good country
Hmm.
to be in, to raise children or to retire. By the way, they have very good
Right.
schools too.
Right. And of course, as I was listening to you, I reminded myself, of course, I've been to Thailand a couple of times, to China a couple of times, and to Hong Kong 2 times, I guess. So yeah, I'm familiar with the area, but yeah, okay. What does it look like in terms of being immigrant entrepreneur friendly and living in Malaysia? When it comes to visa and
Hmm.
having a business entity there and stuff, what does it look like?
Yeah. So obviously, I didn't really, as of now, immigrate to Malaysia. I'm still,
Mhm.
considering myself as a
Mhm.
nomad entrepreneur. The immigration side, we'll talk about it later, but that was, Canada and other countries. But they do have some really good visa. I mean, the one that I applied for, I'm still waiting for the answer. It's called the digital nomad visa. So if you're a
Mhm.
freelancer, or remote worker or whatnot, you can get it. It's the requirements are not very high. It's pretty, fairly easy to get. It just takes time, 2 to 3 months. And they have for retirement or wealthier people, Malaysia, my second home, where basically that gives you permanent residency. You do need to show. I think it's a minimum of 10K per month in revenue, US dollars, and a net worth of X. Anyways, you need a certain requirement, but it is permanent residency. So if you want to come retire here or be 50-50, one country in Malaysia, that's a good option if you have the means. Besides that, to be honest, I didn't look at all all the options. A lot
Mhm.
of the expats that I see here, they are on work permit. Some are student visa. So there are lots of options. I'm just not familiar with all of them.
Right. So are you about to retire in Malaysia?
Not about to, but it is very much an option. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, wow.
We're looking at coming back to Canada with my wife. She got her permanent residency for Canada very recently. So now we
Mhm.
we actually are able to go to Canada. Her family is there, and my family is in France, so not too far. And so we will be going back at some point in the next 6 months, and we will have to
Mhm.
stay there for at least 5 years for her to get her citizenship. But then, and also if we have the means, doing, 6 months, 6 months, Canada, Malaysia is before retirement as a lifestyle. The
Mhm.
winters here, the summers there. It is very much, on the table. Yeah.
Mhm. Awesome. All right, man. Let's talk a little about entrepreneurship and business in
Yes.
general because I'm all ears to find out your path and your story and what you do right now. So, Yeah, let's go to where you got into entrepreneurship. Actually, I would love to hear about that. What was it
Sure.
like, and when was it, and
Yeah.
how did you get started?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll make a quick summary prior to starting my first business. So I did an MBA in France. Never used it, to be frank. I've never had a normal job. Never went to a job interview.
Hmm.
But I had an MBA. I guess I can say. But
Right.
even as I was working, I was doing my studies in France. I was working in sales. I started working in sales. That was my thing. I found myself loving it and being pretty good at it, making good money. And so naturally, when I moved to Canada, finished my semester there, started working on my thesis, I had to do an internship, a 6 month internship. And as my English was not that great at the time. It was English that you learn at school, and people in France don't speak English very well. So
Hmm.
I spent 6 months in Canada. It was getting better, but it was not perfect. So I figured, hey, I have experience in sales. I need to do an internship, and I want to improve my English and even my selling skills. So I found a great job with a friend who hired me, but in a great company named Vivint. So in sales, I was selling home security systems, smart home system. I'm talking 2014, 2015. So that was very new, the
Mm.
being able to unlock your door with your phone, turn off the light, change the thermostat, those kind of things. Sorry. Sorry about that. Can cut this.
No worries.
And so that was a great experience, especially for anyone who has done sales on commission. That's the best type of sales. It's not being in retail where you just have people coming and you sell them shoes. Now you actually go door to door, and people are not expecting you. And within seconds, you have to not only explain what you do, why are you here, get inside their home, do a whole audit of whatever you need to check, and
Mm.
then sell them. In this case, it was systems that were between 5 and 10 grand on the spot, and with installments and so on. But still, you sell it on the spot and get it installed same day. So
Mm.
that
Wow.
was that was pretty tough, as you can imagine. I
That's a
think
big
80,
ask.
obviously that's not how you present it, but that's at the end of the day what we were doing.
Hmm.
It had a lot of value, obviously. If it was 5 10 grand, it was worth the money. But that was very interesting experience. Not only in this case for my language, but sales teaches you so much about yourself and improves you as a person, and some soft and hard skills, communication, listening, asking questions the right way, and so on and so forth. Tenacity, keep going for 5 6 7 hours in a row, sometimes working sometime an entire week, 50 hours, 60 hours for zero, because you've
Mm.
made no sales.
Wow.
So you make no money, but you keep going because the next week you might make, five sales, and you made 5 or 6 grand in one week. So
Mm.
having this tough mind and
Mm.
thick skin, so it teaches a lot. And the reason why I go in details, because that's an advice that I give to anyone, not just
Mm.
entrepreneurs or immigrants, but anyone should have similar experience in sales, at least 6 months, 1 year, because it's going to serve you for anything you want to do, especially entrepreneurship. So moving on, that was my first experience as an entrepreneur, because I was an independent contractor. I was not an employee. I was not on
Hmm.
salary. So I had to deal with, discover the taxes in Canada, how it works for independent contractor, filing it, and so on, deductions, and so on and so forth. So I learned all of that with that experience. But also, also finding ways to grow my personal brand in a way, and not just do door to door, but then I started to hire, to train some salespeople, managing them, maybe finding other ways to get leads, especially in the winter in Canada. It's cold. There is a lot of snow. You cannot really go door to door, so you have to find ways. So I tried a little bit cold calling, maybe some ads online, and so on and so forth. So it was not a business per se with the name, Karim Alarms, but
Right.
I was under the umbrella of that company. But I did learn, quite a bit of things, and the most important being the sales experience.
Hmm.
And so all of that led me to, in 2018, moving out east. So all this whole time I was in Alberta, for those who are familiar, which is on the west, central. west in Canada, the Rockies, the Rocky Mountains. So I moved out east on the east coast, Atlantic coast in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Initially, that was to open a branch of Vivint in that city because they didn't have an office there, and start hiring and recruiting and so on, which I started doing. But as I was doing that, I noticed a big need in a very different industry, which is cleaning industry. I was
Mm.
hearing, people asking left and right, hey, do you know any good cleaners? Because, all the ones that I tried, they all suck. And I'm looking, for high standard, high quality. Anyways, I didn't know anyone,
Is
I
that
was
is that residential or commercial cleaning?
both. I was hearing
Okay.
it in particular from realtors because I was dealing with realtors for the purpose of,
Mm-hmm.
selling alarms to new homeowners and so on. Um, and along those connections that I was making friends, professionally and so on. So the need was actually in both residential and commercial. That's a great
Mm.
question, and that's why that led me to actually start, my first business, in every way that I registered, that I incorporated, and so on, named Steammates, which is a residential and commercial cleaning company that I still have to this day since 2018. Initially, the idea was the angle of eco-friendly, and basically, I purchased a steamer. If you're familiar, it is or steam cleaner, it's also called. It's a machine that allows you to clean anything with just very hot pressured steam. You don't need any chemicals, so you can clean your windows, your floors,
Mm-hmm.
even your couch, your oven, and so on, just by changing the attachment, and you have this hot steam that melts the dirt and the dust and so on. So
Oh.
it's really cool. That's why the company name is Steammates, the
Mm.
mates of steam. So anyways, back to back to my story. That was my
Mm-hmm.
first business, my first experience actually, running a business. So what I've decided to do was to be hands-on, to put my ego on the side, and to actually go and clean people's houses. I didn't have a particular
Mm.
passion for it, but I had a passion to do a good job and have happy clients and get referrals. The sales aspect, that was in my blood. So
Mm-hmm.
I actually found it very fun and exciting to get some clients by different means, finding the best way to find clients. The bigger the clients, the better. To do a good job and actually learn the cleaning part, because it can be very technical in some ways. What equipment do you use? What product do you use? And so on. How do you do it efficiently? How are you productive? And so on. Um, and also to have this, I was 28 at that time, so I had the energy to be that busy, meaning doing the cleaning and doing the sales and also doing the management of the business, the advertising and the accounting and so on. So I was working like 16, 17 hours a day, but it was really fun
Mm-hmm.
because I got to learn entrepreneurship, starting a business, all the challenges and hiccups that come with it, and so on. And as we were growing, not only I started, to hire after a few months, obviously, people to help out and then to, delegate the cleaning aspect. I had no intention to be a cleaner. I wanted to learn the cleaning aspect in order to be able to teach it and to supervise and manage properly. But also, I was recording my journey in what I call now an operations manual, which is all the systems, all the processes, all the ways that I found to do things efficiently and cost efficiently and so on. How to do each type of cleaning, but also how to do my marketing, how to hire, where to hire, what ads. So everything was recorded. And so in a matter of, less than a year, I would say even, less than 6 months, uh, actually, no, how long exactly? Yeah, 8 to 10 months exactly. I had this operation manual for every aspect of the business. I had hired a
Oh.
team at that point. I think we were between 10 and 15 employees. So I was not doing any more cleaning. I was managing. I was the owner and the manager, but I was not the technician
Mm-hmm.
anymore. And I had all of that recorded. So that's when I looked at finding a manager to replace me fully,
Mm.
and to do it. So it took some time to find a good manager, but the goal was to remove myself from the process, because if I'm not part of the process, I can then
Mm-hmm.
work on expanding or duplicating to another city, or to find large client. Basically, do whatever I'm good at, whatever I want to do, instead of having
Mm-hmm.
to do anything in the business. And a lot of entrepreneurs don't realize that they're often their own limitation in that aspect, because everything or some aspect of the business rely on them, so they cannot grow, because if they have to sign off on everything, the business can go so far. You know what I mean? I feel like
Absolutely.
you are
And
about to ask a
often,
question. Yeah,
yeah, and oftentimes it's also, having another job that some believe, oh, now they own a business, but it's basically when they're working in the business, it basically becomes a job, right? But as you said, I really resonated with what you said. When you remove yourself from the business and detach yourself from the business, and now instead of working in the business, now you work above the business, then everything becomes different, because you
yeah,
also start to see things that how where you can improve, where you can grow. Obviously you still want this feedback and this relationship with the clients, but this can also happen with or through a good manager that you hire.
exactly, and that's key. That's very true. Once I found an excellent manager, her name was Peggy at the time. The challenge was in two parts. Was to let go, because at that point, I had the business for 1 year. I was involved in everything, and it can be difficult to let go, to delegate, and have this leap of faith where you trust your employees and your manager, and supervisors and so on. For the business to be done. At that point, sometimes we had three bookings in the morning, three bookings in the afternoon. I obviously could not be involved in any of that. I had no
Mm,
idea if the job was being done well, if there was this and this issue. But I trusted the fact that I hired good people and I trained them well, and they have the operations manual. They know what there is to do. If I don't know, a client cancels last minute, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If the cleaners show up and the property is twice bigger than expected, the client lied to us for whatever reason.
mm,
We have a whole process for that. If the credit card bounces, what do we do, and so on. So yeah, then you have to trust, the system that you have in place. You have to trust your people and take this leap of faith and to let go. And it's actually extremely, it relieves, a big load from
mm,
your shoulders, and it's very, yeah, it's very freeing, and it's very empowering as well to realize that you're literally making money in your sleep.
mm,
First
mm,
off, and also that you actually have created something that really, slapped me in the face is when I realized that I have employees that are not just people who come for a couple of hours a week just to make extra cash, but who are employees full time, relying on this job, and this is their livelihood. They have their mortgage maybe based on this salary and so on, and that actually gives you a big surge of responsibility and so on. That's actually when I realized this is not just a project that I have on the side,
mm.
which was, what I was kind of thinking for the first year. No, this is now a business in every way, and I have a responsibility to it, and to my employees and so on. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, absolutely.
made me
It
grow
gets a
up.
different meaning, right? It gets a
Yeah,
different, it becomes a different project because it has a different meaning now. It's not about only about yourself. And one thing, and I'm looking forward to hear your feedback on that. What happened in my own life, when I was the manager and the business owner, and then at some point I decided to remove myself as the manager. It's also, now I'm making, or at least I think I'm making less money because I have to pay a manager, which
yeah,
would go into my own pocket, right? That's the
yeah,
limiting belief that I had at
true.
first hand, because now I'm bringing on someone who gets away with my salary or makes my salary. But
Yeah,
here's the thing. Now that's short-term thinking, but long-term thinking is, hey, I'm removing myself from all the tasks that I had to do,
yeah,
and now I get to think. Now I get to network. Now I get to grow the business in
yeah.
different ways, so many other ways that I would not be able if I was working as a manager in the business.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear your take on that.
No, that's absolutely true. It is actually surprising, even almost logically speaking. You're like, oh, how can I make more money when I'm delegating everything and I'm paying salaries? But actually, no, that was when we really took off. So we had multiple points where we had a big increase in revenue and so on. The first one was when we started tapping in the Airbnb turnover market. We started partnering with short-term rental property managers, and we did a lot of Airbnb turnover. So that added, that literally doubled the revenue, the number of
Mm.
hours, and the schedule and so on. The second time was when I got this good manager, because not only she was managing the team. I didn't have to deal with that, with the issue with the clients and with the employees and so on and so forth. But also she was, helping with the business development. So we basically
Mm.
were two heads in terms of business development. We're two heads in terms of even finding solutions to improve the systems and processes that we had in place. So we were bouncing ideas out of each other, and we really lowered cost, made things a lot more efficient. She was great at training the team, so the team was even better in cleaning. We had no complaints, or very little complaints in terms of cleaning. So this aspect she was way better than me at that, because she had experience in cleaning. That's what I wanted to add, that I had no experience actually in cleaning before.
Mm.
I hired someone who had years of experience in cleaning, so she was better than me in a lot of
Mm.
things, and I was better than her in some things that I could now focus on, which was specifically, as you mentioned, networking, sales, finding some large accounts. So that's when we got some large contracts, 100K, 150K a year. That
Mm.
again doubled, or almost doubled the revenue, the global revenue, per year. And all of that, I was also doing it. I was really enjoying my lifestyle a lot more, because I didn't have to do anything. I
Mm.
wanted to do those aspects, and whatever I didn't want to do, I can delegate it. I got
Mm.
some VA virtual assistants as well for such and such things, for marketing, for SEO and those kind of things. So yeah, the quality also of your life and your work life is better. Um, One more thing I wanted to add also in the responsibility side of things, you made me think about it, is the fact that that's the point also when I realized that the position of business owner or manager, it is not being the boss, of those people, being their dad and better than you and so on. That's when I really realized that I work
Mm.
for them as much as they work for me. We're really, and it sounds almost cliche to say that, but it's very true. Like, my job was to have everything in place to allow them to do their job, properly. If they
Mm.
needed, for example, I don't know, new equipment, or better processes, I was hearing their feedback, and doing my best to have better system, a better software for this and that, better equipment in place. Okay, I'm going to invest more into you, for you to be able to do your job. I paid a bunch of certifications that we didn't really need, but I wanted them to have, because it would be good to have. One is called WMIS, WMIS something, which is how to handle chemical products and so on. We didn't need to have, but it's good to have. And I paid it for all my employees, because I cared about the team, because they were doing such a
Mm.
great job. They were the one paying my bills. So I wanted
Mm.
to make sure they also leveling up their own personal skills and the work they do.
Mm.
Anyhow, we spent a lot of time on Steammates. I would add just one more thing in this journey before moving on to the other
Mm.
business that is my main focus now. Um, so being able to remove myself from the process, and also having all my systems and processes in place and recorded, was not only great to be able to delegate, but also to duplicate. And that's what I did
Mm.
in 2021. So after less than 2 years, 2.5 years in business, we actually literally copy pasted the whole business into another city. So I got a business partner, a close friend of mine, who moved to Ottawa, the capital of
Mm.
Canada, and we opened a branch there, Stimates Ottawa. Same brand, same website actually that leads to him. Same systems, processes. So I was involved in how to get things started remotely. I wasn't even there physically, and we reached a certain level of success. To this day, it's still operating. It's not as big as Halifax, but it is still going on. Strong, excellent reputation, excellent reviews, and that's in large part thanks to what I built initially in Halifax, the brand, the reputation, the reviews, and the operations manual. That's what allowed us to fairly quickly, reach a certain success in Ottawa. And honestly, if I had the time and motivation and energy, we could actually do that again and again
Hmm.
in multiple cities
Hmm.
because it's been a fun experience.
I have a question that it's
Sure.
sitting on my chest. I have to get it off my chest, you
Of
know.
course. Yeah, go ahead.
Listening to you with what you said, I recorded and documented everything, and everything was pretty much documented that I did for the business. It's amazing, man. It's amazing
Well,
because
thank you.
that's literally what every business should do, and so many don't do it, especially the ones that get started. Here's the thing: I have started so many businesses, worked obviously when I was younger for other business owners, and the first time I'm properly doing this is now with the immigrant entrepreneurs, that I'm documenting everything. I have a SOP and everything. So with working with editors, I'm also making a SOP for them. They can go back and review, and so it's a manual for them. My question is, where did you learn that, man? I mean, did you just wake up and were like, okay, this is the first business I'm doing and I need to document and record everything? Or did you learn that somewhere?
That's a good question, and thank you for the kind words. First of all, I really appreciate that. And I would say it's a mix of a few things. So with my first, the first business I talked about, Vivint, because it was tough and you had to, be at your best and so on. One aspect of the training that we were getting was to really work on ourselves, both physically, we're going to the gym every day and so on, and reading. I was reading lots of
Mm,
books on management, on mindset, on personal development and so on. Um, so that's the first thing. The reason I'm mentioning this is because then when I started Steammate, obviously again I didn't want to be a cleaner. I didn't want to create a job for myself. So I knew from the start I was going to to delegate and so on. And as I was doing that, well, I was training people in doing things the way I'm doing it. But when you train people one, two, three times, and there is a pretty high turnover in this industry, so I was repeating the same stuff.
mm,
Like I'm sick of repeating it. I'm gonna put it in writing. This is
mm,
how you access the
mm,
storage, what you have to do at the start of your shift. This is how you do this type of cleaning. This is how you do an Airbnb turnover and so on. So I put it in writing and then I improved it and then I made it nicer and so on. Around this time, because I was still into my personal development and reading and so on, I got introduced to the book, The E-Myth, that you're probably familiar with.
mm. Yes, I am.
And I read it and I was like, wait, that's exactly what I'm doing. And but it actually put a lot of
Mm,
clarity to what I was, to what I was doing, what I had in mind. It
mm,
actually made it a lot more clear. And that actually stuck to me. That's one of the books that I recommend, the most for entrepreneurs.
mm,
In a nutshell, for those who haven't read it, and just read it, it's a quick read. It's very
mhm,
very valuable. But the idea is that a mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs make is that they actually have three hats, three positions in one. They are the
mhm,
doer, the technician. They are the manager of the business, and they are the owner of the business. But you have to realize that those three positions are separate positions, and that's where there is a whole set of advice and
mhm,
so on how to remove yourself from each hat and delegate properly. And it talks about the operations manual and systems and processes recorded and so on. So I didn't
mhm,
invent all of that, but I was already going in that direction from actual pain points that I was, pains that I was having in the business, which was
mm,
not wanting to constantly having to repeat the same stuff and and wanting to delegate because I didn't want to be the one doing the job.
mm,
I found myself being more an entrepreneur, kind of a wild card and trying things and wanting things to do my own way instead of a business owner when things are, when I have to do things a certain way consistently, I get bored quickly or I don't like it.
mm.
And,
Same
you know,
here.
so, yeah, it's a problem that I
Same
have.
here.
So I have to, if there is something in place that
Right.
I'm doing consistently, actually, I'm
Mhm,
going to give you an example that is funny. If there is something I'm doing consistently and I know, how to do it and it's working, I want to delegate it quickly.
mhm,
Now that's where I am at this point. It wasn't the case at that time. I was still learning that. Now that's where I am. And funny enough,
mhm,
just as a side note for my current business, I realized yesterday that there is something that I've been doing regularly, and I have to do it for, for the business, which is to edit, some of the videos that, I do on podcasts and other video I do, edit them, make shorts, captions, and post them on social media. And it's something I have to do because I want to keep, engagement and send some value to people. But I kept postponing it because it wasn't the top of my priority. So you know what I was asking? I asked my wife, "Hey, do you want to learn social media management?"
Mm.
And she was like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And I hired her officially yesterday
Oh, wow.
to actually do that. And I think she's actually doing it as we speak right now for the first time,
Right.
because I found something that I've been doing. I don't really want to do. It's not worth,
Hmm.
my time, or that's not where I can bring the most value. So just,
Hmm.
pass it along to someone who can do it better than you, more dedicated and more focused, than myself. So
Hmm.
that's a rule I have.
Speaking of books, what sales book do you recommend? Because coming to the US, obviously, I believe Americans are the best salespeople, or among the best salespeople in the world. And I'm learning more about sales, and I'm really excited. And that's something that I really want to improve on. So, do you have a recommendation when it comes to books on sales?
Yeah. So sales specifically, I remember reading I think it's called the Psychology of Sale by Brian Tracy. It's pretty
Mm-hmm.
old. It's good. It has
Okay.
lots of good value, but it's pretty old. Maybe I don't know. It was written 30 years ago, 40 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
something. So for a book, I mean, it's pretty old. Maybe more than that, maybe 50. But it's still one of the pillars in the industry. Another one that served me a lot when I was doing door to door is actually the Door to Door Millionaire. The Door to Door
Right. I've
Millionaire.
heard about that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a really good book that was actually very practical, very applicable to door-to-door sales, but not only. It actually does talk also about, mindset, like the psychology of sale and the customer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, those are the two that come to mind as specifically about sales. You can probably add, in description or something, because I know I have others that just, not coming back to me
Sure.
right now.
Mm-hmm.
But since we're on
Mm-hmm.
the topic of books, the ones that I really recommend is that really have changed a lot, for me. The Miracle Morning
Absolutely.
by I forgot his name. You know his name?
Tall, some,
Yes, Al H-A-L
all something like
something.
this. Yeah. Yeah.
Herald or Al Herald or something. Anyways,
Yeah.
The
Yeah. Yeah.
Miracle Morning, really, really good book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The Happiness Advantage, which is a treatise on the positive psychology, excellent book also to improve your mindset and the way you see success and happiness. Another one, so the E Myth I did mention. Whether you like Grant Cardone or not, the 10x
Right.
Rule is a really good book that really
Right.
pushes you.
He's a good
So
salesman, man. I mean, come on, we have
I
to
don't
give it
like
to
the
him. He's a great
character. I don't
salesman.
like the guy. He's a
Yeah.
great sales guy. He's not a great
Yeah.
guy, I think, in terms of
That's right.
person,
Yeah.
in
Mm-hmm.
my personal opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But he has good books, so it is what it is.
Right.
So those are the ones that I usually recommend because a combo of those, obviously, also how to make friends and influence people.
Right.
That has
Right.
a huge impact. So those are the ones I usually recommend for a starter entrepreneur, the starter kit, the salespeople,
Uh-huh.
entrepreneurs, and so on.
Okay.
Um, yeah. So back to my story because I want to lead to what I do now, if that's
So
okay
I
with
got
you.
the book. Sorry, I got the book. The Miracle
Oh,
Morning is by Hal Elrod.
yes, Hal Elrond.
Hal
Yeah,
Elrod.
that's right.
So
Thank you.
yeah, go ahead.
Um, so yeah, long story short, still at that point, teammates, and actually to this day, we have teammates Halifax that is thriving. We have about 18 employees right now, including a manager and so on. We have
So you're not,
teammate.
sorry to interrupt you, Karim, but you're not involved in the business in the Steammate at all. You have a manager
No,
taking care of business.
yeah. And at that point, I
Okay.
actually even sold half the shares on the corporation to a friend who was someone in the industry as a way to actually remove myself even more and to have
Right.
some cash to invest in my next venture actually.
Okay.
So that's why I'm away and I'm not at all involved in the business except just staying in touch. We have meeting with the manager and assistant manager and my business partner once a week, talk about KPIs, talk about vision, half an hour,
Mm-hmm.
half a week. Um,
Gotcha.
I do also still get involved when we have big, large account leads on large contracts because again, sales is my strong suit, my expertise.
Mm-hmm.
So I do want to be involved in that. but that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Stimates Ottawa also doing quite well, much smaller. They're about 5, 6. It's still owner operated. My business partner is still involved as a manager, but we're working
Mm-hmm.
on daily on removing him also from the process. And I'm also involved. We have one meeting once every 2 weeks, so
Mm-hmm.
altogether less than 5 hours per month on those two
Mm-hmm.
businesses. So it's where I want it to be, in
Right.
order to again focus on this other venture that I started almost 2 years ago now, which is with the company named PropertyGuys.com. It's a Canadian business that was expanding in the US, and so I came across that. It's been brought to me actually, and I got involved in. In a position of franchise development. I'm in charge of their
Mm-hmm.
franchise development for the state of Massachusetts specifically, but
Mm-hmm.
also, the rest of the US I help as well. So I'm not an employee. Again, I started another business, another corporation. This time I actually got some investors. So I had to do, some fundraising, raising some initial capitals to buy the rights on Massachusetts. So I basically virtually own Massachusetts in regard to the Property Guys franchise. So it did require some investment, and that was actually an interesting experience to fundraise and gather
Mm-hmm.
some money from family and friends, and also some people that I didn't know, and have to do a whole pitch and get them interested and so on. But long
Was
story
this the
short,
first time you raised money?
it was, yeah.
Oh
Because the
wow.
first business I started from my
Right.
own pocket, and it was not a big investment, like less than
Mm-hmm.
$1,000 or $2,000.
Mm-hmm.
This time it was a couple hundred thousand.
Mm-hmm.
Which was not huge, and we're not talking millions, but it was still a certain amount, and I um, I didn't have that much. I was basically the first franchise developer in the US. So I didn't have much data to show in order to,
Mm-hmm.
to those investors. So that was a lot of selling the concept, the project, the opportunity, and so on. That's why it was not that easy. But again, when it's not easy, that's where you learn the most.
Exactly.
um, so, um, yeah, so long story short, about 2 years ago, I launched this business, and basically my job is to obviously advertise, to educate people on this model, which is very unique, very innovative, and does not exist in the US at all. So
Mm-hmm.
not only it is bringing a new brand to a new market, but it is bringing a new brand that is doing something very different than everyone else. So that was quite a challenge to a state where I'm not from and where I don't live.
Mm-hmm.
So you
Mm-hmm.
see the challenge accumulating here. And on top of that, doing that remotely, because that's around the time I started actually, I went and got married and started traveling full time.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to add myself some extra layers of challenges. But it's been a fun experience, especially because the model of Property Guys is very unique. And so it feels like pitching Airbnb or Netflix or Uber 20 years ago. It's really
Mm-hmm.
being part of a disruptive model that is going to change the industry. In this case, it's in regard of the real estate industry. So
Mm-hmm.
let me do a side note on what is Property
You
Guys.
made us curious, man. You have to tell us what it does.
Exactly. I little teasers.
Yeah.
So what Property Guys does, if you're familiar with the real estate industry, which is an industry that hasn't changed in over 100 years, if you want to sell a
Right.
property, any kind of property, you have to get a real estate agent, pay a commission, about 5, 6%, and a whole bunch of professionals like a lawyer and a photographer and a stager and all of those that you have to pay as well. And so your bill at the end of the day, you had a house for maybe 10 years, it grew in value, and then a large portion of that value that you accumulated, you actually have to give it away. It typically costs 30, 40, 50, $60,000 to sell your own house. It's not really
Right.
fair. That's what Property Guys actually came to fix, with a model where for a one-time flat fee, you get access
Mm.
to all the services that you need to sell your property efficiently. So again, I mentioned stager, photographer, appraiser, exposure, the listing on the MLS, on Zillow, on Craigslist, Facebook, and so on. The negotiation done professionally, the showings done professionally, the lawyer. So everything is included, but you don't pay any commission. It's only 4, 5, 6 grand, depending on the package that you choose. So it's a lot more fair, and it doesn't matter how much your property is worth. It can be a $2 million property. You still pay only 5 grand, and you get it sold the same way at the end of the day.
Oh, okay, but who is involved in the sales process of the property? Is that the agent that comes through property guys?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are different packages, but to make it simple, we're going to take two. There is the for sale by owner package, the DIY package. So this actually allow the seller, the property owner, to actually sell on his own. A lot of people want to do that. They're called FISBO, or for sale by owner. You sometimes see a sign for sale by owner in front of property.
Mm-hmm.
But often they don't know how. They don't have the knowledge, the experience, the
Mm-hmm.
connections, the services to do so. So they would choose this package that would contain just the services that they need, as well as the expertise and the advising, the hand holding that they may need. This package might be only 1 or 2 grand, by the way. And then on
Mm-hmm.
the other end of the spectrum, you might have the full service package that might be 7 or 8 or 9 grand max, depending on the market. Never more than that. That contains everything. You're completely hands off. We take care of selling your property. In which case, the process is the same, but you don't have one person, which is a realtor, being the quarterback of the whole process. The franchisee is not involved with every listing from start to finish. It is a team effort, not only with our technology. So we have a lot of technology in place to facilitate communication and transfer of data and so on. We have a call center in-house at Property Guys that deals with taking on calls from potential buyers, qualifying them, sending them to the mortgage specialist if they need the mortgage, scheduling the showings, then communication between the buyers and the sellers. So we have basically a team in-house that is specialized in taking each listing from A to Z. And then who does each of those services? We have exclusive partners. So we partner with a photographer, a lawyer, and so on locally. We choose the best ones. We partner with them, and they deal with each of those listings.
Mm-hmm.
So you can imagine the opportunity for, again, a lawyer that is going to deal with a large volume of sellers, every year. This is a gold mine for them. And so
Mm-hmm.
obviously, in return, they're going to promote us heavily. So each of those professionals, locally will promote the franchisee,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's a win-win for everyone involved. The client pays 10 times less. The professionals, get a much larger volume of clients than they ever got. And the franchisee, which I didn't mention, it is franchise model. So
Right.
the franchisee who owns this territory works with a large volume of sellers and also buyers if the franchisee is licensed. And so they make really good money. They actually make more money than the vast majority of real estate agents.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone wins.
So obviously, because when you started talking about that, I was like, okay, this is another MLS flat fee service, which is not. Okay. You
No, no,
guys
no.
give
I might have
way more.
you have to I have to apologize because it's midnight here. I might have failed to mention that it is a franchise model. So I
Right, right.
probably need to touch on this. For those who are not familiar with franchise, a franchise is basically a business that you purchase. But instead of buying a business instead of starting a business from scratch, starting your own brand, your own systems and processes and so on, like I mentioned earlier, I've done it before. Finding your own clients, finding your own ways, making mistakes, costly mistakes often, hiring, making a website. I mean, you name it. It takes a
Mm-hmm.
lot to make a business
Mm-hmm.
and be successful. When you get a franchise, what you're buying in, it is an existing brand, reputation, client database, systems and processes in place. You just have to follow the operations manual. Usually there
Mm-hmm.
is an operation manual you have to follow. So you know exactly what you have to do. You're not making any, mistakes. In our case, we also provide the website, the SEO, marketing service,
Mm-hmm.
the call center that I mentioned, lead generation. So a whole bunch of things that you would have to go and get yourself if you were just starting your own business. In this case, it's provided to you because you're buying in this franchise. And so at the end of the day, what I was going to say is that yes, there is a buy-in when you get a franchise, but this is way cheaper than the what you would have to spend if you were to start your own thing from scratch, put a lot of money, on marketing, on getting the word out there, and
Mm-hmm.
making a bunch of mistakes, which again can be very costly mistakes when you're learning a business from scratch. So it actually makes sense financially. The risk is lowered drastically because you don't have to invent anything. Hundreds have done it before you,
Mm-hmm.
so there is no reason you won't be successful. You have a strong support system as well, so it lowers the risk, and so you reach a certain level of success usually much faster and much higher than when you start on
Mm-hmm.
your own. So that's what a franchise model is. And in our case, I mean, as I mentioned, it is a territory. It is a piece of the map. In Massachusetts, it might be Boston, Essex County, Cape Cod. For those who are from Massachusetts, I don't know if you have any in your audience, but those are territories that are an entire franchise, and so that means every listings, every client, every lead in this territory is yours. So you have exclusivity. You have no competition internally, and that's how franchisee work on a large volume of clients.
Right. Is that also a way when you work with or when you pick your franchisees? Is that the way that you look at it? Okay, we don't want competition, obviously, or over competition in an area. So when we have, let's say, 5 in Massachusetts, then we go somewhere else and then get our get our franchisees in different areas, so we don't create competition for them.
Yeah, so actually, it is a good question. At Property Guys specifically, I don't know how other franchisor do, but we actually have the entire U.S. and Canada already mapped out. So we have all the
Mm,
territories already mapped out. They all have different shapes and sizes because we want them to all have the same potential,
mm-hmm,
in the sense the number of dwellings and demographic and so on. So they're already mapped out, and every franchisee actually end up not only not being in competition, but actually working together. Because you can imagine if you're successful, say in Boston, your success is not going to stop at the edge of your franchise. It's going to ripple to Salem, Lynn, Quincy, Worcester. So I'm talking about cities, around it. And so those might be neighboring franchisee that will benefit from your success. You're going to benefit from their success. Their marketing, will benefit you, and so on and so forth. So it is very much a team effort. And by the way, this is one of the things that really sold me on Property Guys from day one, is this togetherness, the fact that everyone is on the same boat. There is no competition internally. One franchisee in one side of the country can call another one on the other side for help, advice, whatever. We do get them in touch to help one another. And even within home office, you can call anyone from the call center, from the marketing department, the CEO, the executives. Everyone is approachable, and I think that's amazing. And you don't find that often enough in companies, as far as I know. I mean, as I said, I've never
mm-hmm,
had a real job before.
mm-hmm. Why did you guys start it at Massachusetts?
I chose Massachusetts for a few reasons. I've done some market research in the US, not all of the US. I chose it a little bit arbitrarily. In terms of the market, was was right for this opportunity in many ways. It was a good mix of different type of market as well, more rural, more city, large cities, smaller towns, and so on. It was in the same time zone as me when I was in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and where the headquarters is, which is in New Brunswick, Moncton, New Brunswick. Same time zone, which makes things easier. I didn't want to be, in California, Hawaii, or
Right.
and have to deal with the time zone difference. Funny enough, I have to deal with it now because at that time I was
Right.
not planning on traveling. Now I'm 12,
Uh-huh.
13 hours away. But also to be close by, because at that time I was still considering either just going back and forth or actually relocating to Boston.
Hmm.
That was very much an option. And then I realized that I could do it remotely. At this time, it makes more sense this way. As we grow, as we have 10, 15, 20 franchise, maybe more across Massachusetts and then across New England, I probably will have to relocate there because it's going to be a whole different ball game. But for now, as I'm getting things started, the first few franchisee, it's doable remotely. Yeah.
Okay. And of course, I have to ask you, what does it require for someone to become a franchisee and how much does it cost? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, and I'm very open and transparent on that, absolutely, because it is made both affordable and highly profitable. So, what it takes, we don't require people who come from real estate industry, people who are licensed in real estate, people who have business experience. Those are great assets. It's, they become top candidates, but we don't require this because we have many franchisees who were nurses and teachers and veterans that had no business experience, but
Mm-hmm.
they have that drive
Mm-hmm.
to build something of their own. They're probably sick of their 9 to 5, and they want to start their own business. They probably just don't know how or don't know what, and
Mm-hmm.
that's where a franchise is the right opportunity for you in these cases. In this case. Or people who just have passion for real estate, but they don't want to become an agent because it's just an
Mm-hmm.
overcrowded industry. There are too many agents. They all do the same thing. They all have the same value proposition. So they want to come to something where they don't have to get their license, because in this case, they don't have to get their license. They can, and it's good if they do, but they don't have to. And they get to learn both real estate and entrepreneurship at the same time. Because once again, being a real estate agent, you're a contractor. You're just going from one commission
Mm-hmm.
to another. You're a salesperson, like I used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Being a business owner is a whole different ball game, and a lot of agents think they are business owners, but they're not. So
Right.
if you are an agent, you want to be a business owner, become a real estate a property guys franchisee. But in which case, you actually own your business, you can grow your
Mm-hmm.
business, you can delegate, and you can sell your business eventually
Mm-hmm.
for a lot more than what you got it for initially. so
Mm-hmm.
and so the what you got it for initially, straight up, a franchise is usually between 50 and 75K. So it's actually not bad for a
Mm-hmm.
business that can range between $500,000 to $1 million in revenue per year. But currently in Massachusetts, it is actually made even more affordable, between 35 and 40K. To help out the first few franchisees, we're going to do that until we reach probably a threshold of 8 or 10. Um, and um, and even the ongoing operating capital is not that high. It is very low overheads, relatively speaking, because you don't need to hire anyone. You don't need to get an office or a store or anything like that. So all those large expenses, you don't have to. We do, as I mentioned earlier, provide lead generation, website, and so on. So really, your operating capital goes to your everyday expenses, Wi-Fi and phone and car and so on. And marketing advertising of all kinds.
Mm-hmm.
It can be online, offline, can be flyers, you can do door to door, you can do social
Mm-hmm.
media, you can do podcasts, you can do networking, and so on and so forth. So see what works best in your market, but the majority of your expenses are some kind of advertising.
Right. And how much can they make when spending, let's say, around about 50K? What is the projection? Obviously, it's a broad question, but what
Yeah.
is around about the projection that they can make in revenue?
So it's tough to say for multiple reasons. So first off, the liquid capital, basically what you need initially to own your territory, your franchise, and to operate it. We're basically looking for people who have access to between 60 and 100K, all
Mm-hmm.
included. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
actually, what am I saying? Sorry, not 60, 80 to 100 in that range,
Mm-hmm.
to own and to operate. Just to clarify on that point, then the how much, it can go as low as someone who is actually not working, not following the processes, not following the operating capital, the operational operation manual. Sorry, I'm mixing my words. And so in which case, they can make, I don't know, 100, 200. It's really, as you're a business owner, it's whatever you
Right.
put in the
Mm-hmm.
business of effort. However, how high? I think it can go as high as between 1 and 1.2, 1.3 million in revenue a year. And typically, again, this is not contractual, just to give you an idea.
Right.
Typically,
Right.
the profit margin can range between 25 and 40%
Oh, wow.
profit, depending on the cases. The reason why it's a large range is because, so first off, we have about 100 franchisees right now active, and we've had hundreds over the years. They all do things slightly differently, in the sense of some are more hands-on, so they do
Mm-hmm.
less numbers. They do maybe 70 or 80 or 90 listings a year, but they have a larger profit margin because they are doing more things themselves. They might be doing the showings themselves. They might be taking pictures themselves because they want to and they like it.
Mm-hmm.
Others are more business minded, more business oriented. They actually hire some people. They actually work more on reaching 150 listings a year, and also working with buyers and with renters, which we can do, and maybe expanding to a second and a third territory very quickly. And so in which case, yeah, they have a smaller profit margin, but that's usually when they reach much larger, numbers. So
Hmm.
it's equivalent. Sorry, not equivalent. It's customizable from one franchisee to
Right.
another, and that's one of the cool things. You have an operation manual. You have things that you have to do, but how you customize your own franchise to your skills and experience and desires,
Hmm.
it is up to you, which is nice.
And are you guys open to other states having
Yeah,
franchisees from other states? If somebody is in
100%.
Florida and is listening to that and would want to give you a call, would you guys be open to that?
Absolutely. We are indeed open in Florida, actually,
Oh,
Florida,
seriously?
Texas,
Okay.
and Connecticut. Yeah, it actually started in Florida. The thing is, the model is slightly different in Florida and Texas. It's not someone
Hmm.
like me who's doing this business development. However, if anyone is interested in any of those states, so Massachusetts, that's where I am virtually,
Hmm.
Connecticut, Florida, and Texas, definitely reach out to me, and I will help you with the initial information and then direct you to the right people. No problem. As I said,
Hmm.
we're one big family.
Hmm.
And if it's someone from another state, because after some podcasts, I have people reach out from Washington, from California, absolutely you can reach out, and there are ways to do it. The thing is, first there need to be someone like me who either open the whole state or part of the state. So basically purchase the rights on X number of franchise, 10, 50, 100, and
Hmm.
then he's in charge to do the business development to find franchisee. But in which case, and it is a really fun job. But in which case, if you purchase the right on 10 or 20 franchise, you actually can open one or two of them yourself. So you can have this double hat
Right.
of being a
Right.
franchisee in the best territories, and then finding neighboring franchisee. I would even
Hmm.
argue that it is probably the best way to develop a state is to be a franchise developer like me and a franchisee at the same time. If you have the guts, the energy to do so, because if I had done this, we probably would have grown a lot faster.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
because you bringing some local numbers, I would know exactly, as a franchisee, how many listings I would get, per month, and some good reviews and some referrals and so on. So I would get that traction that then, more people would want to acquire a franchise after seeing my numbers.
Hmm. Hmm.
Unfortunately, as I mentioned, my wife getting her PR just recently for Canada, not even for the US yet. It is not for now an option for me, but I am considering it in the future. Yeah,
Hmm. Thanks for sharing all that, man. I was just curious because
of course.
I've done some deals in real estate here and there, and I was just curious to see how it works. So I hope someone
Yeah,
who's listening or watching this will also get some value. So when I'm listening and watching you, I'm like, that's a happy man. He's in a good place. He's happy. He's in peace. Was it always like this, or not always like this? Have you had some challenges in your journey,
of
also in
course.
your entrepreneurial journey?
Of course, we all do, and thank you once again. I even at midnight, I'm glad that I have that aura, I guess. But
Absolutely, you do.
we have challenges in the journey. I have challenges right now. I have stuff that sometimes might keep me up at night.
Mm,
And but I mean, at the end of the day, and again, it's gonna be cliche, but it's not about where you end up. It's about the journey. When we talk
mm,
about entrepreneurship, so I'm enjoying the journey, and I'm also working. So, okay, let me actually repeat this. First, when you're starting a business, you have to expect to have, pardon the expression, shit hit the fan. You're
mm-hmm,
going to have
mm-hmm,
some again mistakes and challenges and things and some big stuff to deal with. So you have to know that up front and be comfortable with being uncomfortable. With having to
mm-hmm.
deal with those. Secondly, I think the biggest skill besides sales, yeah, besides sales, the biggest skill is to take decisions quickly and to deal to fight fires, to deal with problems
Right.
that arise and find solution quickly and well. And I think this is a skill that you can develop and you develop as being an entrepreneur. just like you develop as being a father, or a mother, a parent, just like in some situation that teaches you how to solve problems quickly and often.
Mm-hmm.
My point being, as you're learning this, as you're growing as a person, as you're focusing on growing as a person, on learning, on not making mistakes and not failing, because you might fail. I might fail tomorrow. I might lose my
Mm-hmm.
businesses. Big deal. Do it again. Or maybe I'll have to find my first job for a while and then start my next business. It's not a big deal. At the end of the day, nothing is a
Mm-hmm.
big deal in this life.
Mm-hmm.
And you can always bounce back. So be comfortable with this, not knowing what tomorrow will bring. Focus on what you can control. You cannot control what's going to happen tomorrow. You cannot control on how the business is doing. Besides specific things where you actually can press the lever and press this button, and pull the lever, sorry, and press this button. That's where, if you narrow down your attention and your focus on those things, it actually very freeing, because you know that those other things are out
Mm-hmm.
of your control. Am I going to get this client? We're bidding on a huge client right now for Steammates, actually. We're talking 2.5 million a year. That's going to be next level.
Mm-hmm.
And are they going to accept or not? There is lots of bids. There are lots of other companies. This is not in our control, so why stress about that? What I tell my manager and my business partner: focus on, let's make the crunch the numbers in the best manner, make the best bid, send it to them on time, and that's it. And then it's out of
Mm-hmm.
our hands. So all of that, to come back to your point, is if you focus on what you can control, on enjoying the journey, on growing, on learning, and you focus on being happy, that's how you're
Mm-hmm.
going to reach success. That's actually the point of the book that I mentioned earlier, The Happiness Advantage, which is
Mm-hmm.
reversing the equation. Instead of looking to reach this level of success to be happy, but then there is always the next one and the next one,
Mm-hmm.
reaching this threshold. Actually work on yourself to be happy. Whatever makes you happy, makes you content, makes you grateful and satisfied. It can be your spirituality, your religion, your family, your kids, your environment, and so on. If you work on this, you're actually more likely to reach certain levels of success, because you already have um, the right mindset and environment. In my case, it is traveling with my wife, the world. I really enjoy it. So that's why I'm saying it almost doesn't matter if one of my business fail or I have such and such failure, because I have the right environment, and I'm not putting all my eggs into, is my business am I going to get this bid, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense? I don't know if that was confusing or not.
100%,
Okay,
100%. I
good.
love what you're saying. And, when I was listening to you again, it came one of the great books that I don't usually like to recommend books, because then people have expectations, and some book that resonated with, or I resonated with, might not leave the same experience for someone else. But in this case, one book that reminded me of what you just said is Gap in the Gain by Dan Sullivan. Is a great book, and is all about focusing on the gain instead of the gap, because when you're focused on the gap, then the horizon always keeps expanding, and
Gap in the
so you're
gain
chasing gap and the gain. Yes.
and the gain.
Dan
Oh, I'll check it
Sullivan.
out. Thank you.
Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy. So yeah, that's a great book. I was listening to the audio book and reading the paper copy. So
I You just reminded me of another book that I do recommend,
mhm,
unrelated with everything we talked about. Do you
mhm.
love me?
Do you love me? Okay, I
No, do
haven't
you
heard
allow
about
me? No,
it.
no, no. I'm asking you, do you allow
Of
me
course,
to share it?
sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you love me? This other book is Seven Levels of Communication by Michael
Mm,
J. Myers. I read it a bunch of
okay.
times, and it's excellent for to teach you how to grow a business based on relationships, on networking.
Mm,
So it is a really cool story. Basically, it's a bunch of very applicable advice and tips and so on, embedded in a really cool story, very easy read. It takes the example of a realtor, but it's really applicable for any kind of businesses and entrepreneurs. And highly recommend Seven Levels of Communication by Michael J.
awesome.
Myers.
I made the note because I'm all about communication. Becoming a podcaster also is like something that I truly want to improve on, and I'm working on improving it, because I believe communication is the key to so many things. And we have
100%.
you know, we had a great communication, man, with you. This I don't want to. We're going a bit over an hour. I could go for another hour, but I know
Or,
it's late for you.
or
And
we do episode 2. Let's wait in 6
100%.
months or something, 1 year,
100%. We'll
episode 2.
we'll bring you back, because I feel there is your journey is so interesting, and there is so
Thank you.
much that we and the audience can benefit from. So we'll definitely have you back on the podcast. By the way, you know who do you remind me of? I don't know if you know the guy or not. Of
Karim
course, you're
Benzema?
way no, 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 no. Of course, you're way more good looking and more charismatic than him, but somehow you remind me of him. There was a guy, I'm not sure if you're into kickboxing and martial arts or not, but there was a guy. I was big into kickboxing also, did
Yeah.
myself kickboxing. There was a guy, French guy actually. His name is Cyril Abidi, and
Oh, it sounds familiar. I don't think I
he
know
was
him,
a
but
yeah,
yeah.
he was a heavyweight guy, but he was not built for a heavyweight, you know. He was competing with these guys that were way, way, way above his size. But he would go toe to toe, and he would just not care, you know. He would
Yeah.
go and give it all, and he would get knocked down, he would get up, knock the other guy down. So I I recommend you watching it on YouTube, Cyril
I'm
Abidi.
just like
So
him, but in business and in sales. I don't
exactly,
care. I just
exactly.
go for it.
You just go for it, 100%. So thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you coming on at this time of the day or time of the night
My pleasure. No, I
from
was.
from the other side of the world. And people like you make what we build and this podcast and this show valuable. And I know there is much value of what you just shared with us that people can hear and benefit from. Thank you so much for being
Thank you.
here.
No, honestly, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure chatting with you. But also, what I'd like to highlight to people is that wherever you are, because I know we're talking specifically North America, but I think it's something that you can do anywhere. I mean, in my case, I immigrated to Canada, then another city in Canada. I didn't know anyone. Now I have a business in the US in a state where I went twice, but I'm still able to do it. So it is not exactly being an immigrant. I mean, it is in some sort, but at the end of the day, we're putting labels, and we're putting some extra challenges. When nowadays, I think things have been made so easy to start a business in so many countries. Even here in Malaysia,
Mm,
I looked into it. I know I could start a business very, fairly easily. I just don't have the time. But anywhere you are, the borders, have fallen in term of business. It's just so easy to communicate, to market, to have meetings, remotely, and so on and so forth, that I highly recommend anyone who wants to start their first business to give it a go. Don't overthink it. Just go
mm,
ahead and learn on the spot. So that's the best school for entrepreneurship. It's just by doing and potentially failing and then doing again. So that would be my biggest advice. And anyone who wants to reach out to talk entrepreneurship, to talk about property, guys, in Massachusetts specifically, or any kind of franchise, whatever, don't hesitate to reach out on LinkedIn. Just put my name. I'm the only one with this name. You'll find me easily, and I'd be happy to help in any way I can.
awesome. I couldn't have said better what you just said about starting and getting started. And I believe we're living in a time that is so easy to start a business if you have the right mindset, and
Yeah,
if you're just a little risk taker, because obviously it takes some risk.
yeah.
And so we will definitely link you up in the show notes. People can reach out and find you and
Thank you.
connect with you. And yeah, man, again, thank you so much for coming on the show. Whoever listens or is watching this, please give us a like and subscribe to the show and share it with other, because that's how we get that's how we get the word out. We don't sell advertise. We don't, we don't have anyone who is funding this project. Everything is bootstrapped. So the only thing that we ask from you is to share it with other people so we can get the word out and they get the benefit in one way or another. So Karim, once again, thank you so much for coming on the show, and I look forward to bringing you back and hearing more about your story sometime in the future.
Thank
Thank you
you
so
so
much.
much, Ali. Thank you.